For example number 5, we're going to be dealing with a word problem, or what we sometimes call an application problem, where we're going to apply our knowledge of solving equations, in this case, to a real-world example. So let's take a look at example number 5, and we'll kind of walk you through how to work these things. It says a real estate broker base salary is $18,000 a year. And I can tell you from personal experience that $18,000 a year is not a lot of money. She earns a 4% commission on total sales. How much must she sell to earn a total of $55,000 total income per year? So, what we have to first figure out is this. It's always good to write what we call a verbal model. Just kind of spell out what your equation or expression would look like depending on which one you're working with. And so what we have down here is we've basically created a verbal model. And we can just basically say out loud, my total income is going to be a result or equal to whatever my base salary was plus whatever my commission rate is times my total sales. Now, my commission rate times my total sales technically represents my total money from the commission. So I could even simplify this verbal model even further. I could say that my total income, and I'll just abbreviate that, is equal to my base salary plus my commission earned. And so what we can do is we could do a simpler verbal model, or we could do a more detailed verbal model. Either way, it gives you something to work with. Now, what's good for that is, and I sometimes like to put that first and then take what we have and apply all of the individual parts. And so I now know that I'm looking for a total income of $55,000. I have a base salary of $18,000, a commission rate of 4%, which is written as a decimal, and I'm looking for my total sales. So we can then replace or substitute the parts in the verbal model that we have numerical values for, and of course we can replace what we're looking for, the total sales, with the x variable. And then we would have a linear equation that we would go ahead and solve in a normal fashion. And when we solve that, we see that the broker must sell $925,000 worth of real estate in a given year so that she can earn $55,000 a year. Now, I know at this point in your life, $925,000 worth of real estate must sound like a lot, but if you really think about it, at this point in time in 2013, that the going rate for most houses in Baton Rouge ranges anywhere from $200,000 to $500,000 a piece. So this lady could technically sell 2 $500,000 houses, and she would have earned that much money for the year. So, good real life example. Many of your parents may be in the real estate business, and they would understand this example perfectly. The rates may be different, their base salary may be different, but the example is very relevant. So let's bring this down. Let's change the scenario a little bit to maybe something that you might be doing in college in a few years. Sample problem 5 describes a situation of a waitress who earns a base salary but then also receives tips on an hourly basis. So go ahead and take an opportunity to work sample problem number 5 and use the previous example to guide you. First thing I want to do, I'm going to read this problem and see if I can come up with a verbal model that represents the scenario. It says a waitress has a base salary of $3 per hour, makes approximately $15 per hour in tips. How many hours must she work to make $135? Well, first off the bat, whatever it's asking me to find, that's typically going to represent my variable. So let's talk about this. We're looking for total pay. Alright, so we're looking for a total pay. And my total pay is basically made up of my base pay plus my tip pay. So that's a verbal model that I can use. Now, if I use the information from the problem, I can see that I'm looking to see how much it'll take me to make a total pay of $135. So my total pay is represented by $135. It says that my base pay is $3 an hour. So this is a rate. So this is the amount of money I make per hour. And my tip pay is also representative of the amount of money I make per hour. Well, fortunately, I know how much money I make, but what I'm missing is my hourly rate. And I can represent that with an H, I can represent that with an X, I can represent that with any given variable. My tip pay is $15 per hour, and again, I don't know what my the amount of hours that I'm going to work at this point. That's what I'm trying to find. So I have an equation here. First thing I need to do is to simplify the right side. So 3h and 15h gives me 18h. And then I would simply divide both sides by 18. Gives me h is roughly 7.5, and of course that's representing hours. So what it's basically telling me is at $3 an hour plus 15 in tips per hour, I need to work 7.5 hour shift to make $135. And that is pretty realistic. Since the last time I waited tables, that was roughly what people made. So if you're good at it, you might make more per hour in tips. If you work at a different restaurant, you might make more per hour. But that's a pretty realistic scenario. So that is the way we would apply solving equations to a word problem.